is going on? No horsing around, family. Zach Boyd, Stephen Burton, back at it again. Thursday evening live stream. And guys, this is going to be a fun one. We thought, put a lot of effort, a lot of energy in just kind of doing the scouting, the resources, the quarterback talk. But tonight is all about the mock draft. First, last, and final mock that we're going to do. There we go, as Stephen Burton on the sound effects. So the way it's going to go, and I'll lay this out as more people kind of dive in here. I'm going to do what I think is most likely to happen, not what I necessarily think should happen. So, and no trades. We're not going to do any trades with this. You guys can chime in. You guys can critique. You can do whatever you want. And we're going to pick all the way up to the Colts' second-round pick, I believe, at 35. So we'll start at 1, like anybody else would. And I think Steven here in just a second, yep, he's going to pop it up there. You guys can follow along. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know who you would pick. Like it, love it, hate it. It doesn't matter. We're all for it. We're for everything. Stephen Burton, before we get going, want to just kind of transition into this. As always, this podcast is going to be powered and sponsored by WagerWire. And speaking of WagerWire, some of those lines have changed here recently. I think a week ago, it was a pretty dead even, or an assumption that C.J. Stroud had a really, really good chance, if you would believe the lines, C.J. Stroud potentially going number 1. Now you head over to WagerWire and you want to place that bet. You ain't getting those same odds, man. I mean, it's Bryce Young all the way, as we'll get into all of that. You guys can shop those bets, trade those bets, parlay those bets. You can do whatever you need to do. It's kind of a one-stop shop to go there for all of your betting needs. And if you guys are big draft junkies and you like to bet a little bit too and just have a little bit of fun, get a little more excitement, head on over to WagerWire. Check it out. That's www.wagerwire.com, www.wagerwire.com, and get your money in, man, before those lines change too much. Stephen, before we get going, thoughts, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I love that you touched on the WagerWire and the lines. I mean, for anybody who thinks they know what the Colts are going to do, if you go and look, man, it's pretty even too. I think they're the favorite to draft Will Levis, and they're the second favorite to draft Anthony Richardson, and it's like just dead even. No one really knows, man.
Nope.
And I like what people say. If somebody tells you they know, man, they are lying.
Yeah, because it's definitely lying season. Colton, thank you so much, man. Be the first one to comment on this video. Love to know your thoughts. You're always in here. You do such a great job of supporting us. So we're going to go through this draft. We're going to do this live mock and just see how it goes. We'll go pick by pick. I have the same thing that you guys are looking at on my phone. Be a little easier for my eyes here, as I'm getting 41 years old and my eyes are getting a little bit, not as good as they once were. Without further ado, the very first pick in this mock draft, the no horsing around mock draft. Go ahead and tap that. Don't need to overthink this. We've been talking about this forever. I'm going to go with Bryce Young, first pick in the draft. I think that's pretty easy for me. I'll just plug that in here on my phone so I can follow along as we go through. So that's easy. I mean, Stephen, Bryce Young, as anybody who listens to this podcast knows, I thought he's the best quarterback all along. It's one of the reasons I was a little bit bummed and let down that we didn't make the move to trade to number 1 and Carolina did. A little bit envious of that. But that being said, I think that when it's all said and done, Carolina Panthers traded up to get a guy. Obviously, he gets it here and he gets it physically. And Vegas agrees. Everybody agrees. He's basically shut down all workouts that he had going on. I don't think this is going to be one we have to even talk a whole lot more about, Stephen. Bryce Young, number 1, but the draft starts at number 2, right? Like, what do you do if you're the Houston Texans? And I went through this all week long. What do you do if you're the Houston Texans? And, it's my brain versus my heart. And my heart tells me that they're going to take Will Anderson. You got DeMeco Ryans, and he's a defensive guy. He's going to love him. We all know that the Houston Texans were absolutely infatuated with Bryce Young, and now with him off of the board, you've got to pick somebody. But my brain doesn't tell me that, Stephen. My brain tells me they're going to take a quarterback because you've got a general manager in his third year. He's got to start making something happen, right? Like he's going to have to do something, and it's all about the quarterback. You're not winning if you don't have a quarterback, and he should know full well Davis Mills isn't getting it done. And I don't know if he has the luxury. Nick Caserio has the luxury of sitting around a whole nother season and just hoping that next year a quarterback falls into his lap. Now he could roll the dice and he could say, you know what? We may take that 12th pick and we may end up getting our guy at 12. It's very possible. We'll see how that goes down the road. But this is probably going to be my first hot take of this draft, and I feel strong about this, if I'm being honest. And I'm going to select for the Houston Texans Will Levis. That's who I think they're going to take. That's just from, call it educated speculation. But I do think they're going to take a quarterback, and I don't think they're going to take Anthony Richardson, and I don't think it's going to be C.J. Stroud, as you're going to see as this mock goes through. Yeah. I mean,
my turn to tell you. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I get to have a little tit for tat now, right?
Absolutely. Stephen Burton had the floor. I want to thank Nomad, Sarah, Colton, unboxing, all of you in here. Let us know what you think about it. We're just 2 picks in on this mock draft. We're going to go all the way to the Colts' second-round pick, so stay in there. Figure it out. Let us know. Stephen Burton, you have the floor. Will Levis as a second pick in my mock draft. Feel free to just rip me apart if you need to, man.
Well, so like I would disagree. I think they're going to go Will Anderson.
Okay.
But I see your perspective, right? Like they've got to go quarterback, right? I also could see, I think it was very well laid out by you, the 12th picks there. They could use it to move up. They could also be building the team. I mean, I read an article earlier today that talked about D'Amico has a 6-year contract. So he kind of has that luxury. Caserio might not, but they could be looking. They have 2 firsts next year, depending on where they land. They're not going to be much better. You hate to plan for the following draft. I think that's one of the laziest takes that you can have is to say, well, next year's better.
Next year.
Always next year. Next year's always better, right? And you can poke holes. I went back and forth about that, but I also know, me and you have talked about with Will Levis that it wouldn't shock us. They do, Caserio has that history of liking those big-bodied, big-armed quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are probably screaming, "What's up with C.J. Stroud?" I don't buy into any of the stuff that's come out the last couple of days, really, outside of the score on the test not being great. The Manning Passing Academy, stuff like that, that doesn't concern me a ton, especially when you hear some of the reports coming out kind of refuting it today. The one I stick with is what you've mentioned from the very beginning, and I think other people are starting to kind of catch on to now more, is C.J. Stroud does not want to go there, and I don't think they want to deal with C.J. Stroud's agent. So it's not shocking to me that they wouldn't pick him. And also, I'll point this out. This is why I do think they go Will Anderson too, is we've said over and over, if you don't love the quarterback, why settle? Well, they love Bryce Young, and they don't want to settle. Like, they might need a quarterback, but I don't think they're just going to settle. I think they were all in on Bryce Young, and they may take one, like maybe they take one with the 12th pick. Maybe they take one in the second round.
The real power move.
I don't think they're settle.
We're not going to do trades on this right here, Stephen, but the real power move I felt like today, I thought while I was kind of doing this exercise, I thought, what would be really crazy if the Texans did? If the Texans selected at 2, let's just say they did take a Will Anderson, and then they trade back up to 3 with the Arizona Cardinals to take their quarterback, or vice versa. Just think about how crazy that would be to get the best defensive player and in their minds the best quarterback available as well. Talk about a home run. That's just something that kind of entered my mind today. Something that we'll talk about as we go.
Well, somebody they brought up too also is, they have a lot of connections to San Francisco, and there's a lot of smoke coming out about Trey Lance right now. Maybe they take a Will Anderson, they package a couple of picks, and they make a trade, and they get Trey Lance. There's so much smoke in so many different directions that it's hard to tell. But I mean, if they take a quarterback, I agree. I don't think it's Anthony Richardson. I don't think it's C.J. Stroud. I really don't. of the quarterbacks that are on the board, I can see Will Levis. I just disagree. I just think that they're going to go Will Anderson. I go with your heart, not your head on this one.
There you go. Let's get into the third pick, guys. Let us know what you think about it. Now, this one we did no trades, so obviously this could be a potential trading spot for several teams behind them. I think they'd like to trade the pick. I don't know if they're going to be able to trade the pick. I've heard a little bit of rumblings from the Tennessee Titans, a little bit of rumblings from the Raiders. Let's just assume they're going to take best player available on the defensive side. Now, there's a discussion, right? We're going to talk about Will Anderson, but we could also talk about, Tyree Wilson, who's just shooting up the boards. People a lot to like about him. In this particular situation, I think you're a first-time general manager, got you a new head coach down there, rebuilding. You want to get that first pick right, Steven, right? Like you want to feel more comfortable. You don't want to flip the coin and really gamble. And one guy in this draft that you feel confident at a minimum is just going to be a very good football player, can pass rush, also is very, very good against the run, actually dominant against the run. I'm going to take Will Anderson for the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm going to run that one in. I'm going to be glad that I got the best non-quarterback on the defensive side of the football in this draft. And now it's all set up, right? Now it's all set up for the Indianapolis Colts to select at 4. Before we do that, thoughts of the chat as well as your thoughts on my thinking process of taking Will Anderson at number 3.
I'm okay with it. I mean, I think.
Obviously, you think you would feel like he probably was going to go number 2, but let's just say he's available.
I would think he'd probably be 2. I like the rationale behind the best defensive player. I think that's definitely something that they're going to be looking towards. With him off the board, I could see Tyree. I could see that one a little bit. The thing is with the trade is I think they're open for business. I think the business is not, to quote Antonio Brown, booming.
Yeah.
For them. I don't think there's a reason why you don't leak that 6 teams have inquired if 6 teams have legitimately inquired, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I could see that. I could see a trade, but if you're going with what's on the board, like on here, then I mean, I think they'd be stupid not to take Will Anderson. It would be malpractice to not take him at this point with him sitting on the board. I'm interested to see what your next pick is.
That leaves us at number 4. Obviously, everybody who's listening to this, Indianapolis Colts pick, the 4th pick in the 2023 NFL draft. And I'm going to tell you, it got really, really hard for me at the end to make my final decision on this. I know it's line season, Steven. I know you hear a lot of smoke. That's coming from a lot of different camps because, if you want a CJ Stroud, you want him to fall, right? Like, and then vice versa. You've got all of these different things. The one thing that I just continue to keep coming back on is the fact that Chris Ballard's been fairly transparent over the years in what he's looking for in a player. He's never going to name the type of player or the player that he's going to take. But he's been pretty transparent in what he wants. And it is abundantly clear that accuracy is a big, big deal for him and Shane Steichen. Ultimately, there is a major temptation to take Anthony Richardson right here. We all know his ability with his legs and what he could grow into being. But I keep coming back to the accuracy, and I'm going to take the person who's probably the most surgical in this draft. Indianapolis Colts are going to select CJ Stroud right here, and I'm going to be a pretty happy person when that does happen. And I don't really care about all of the the outside noise that's going on.
Hell yeah!
And that's exactly what you're going to get. My reaction when if that in fact does happen on draft night. CJ Stroud, the Indianapolis Colts, going to look good in a uniform next 10, 12, 15 years, growing into that offense. Shane Steichen, love to see what he could do with that. And maybe explore using those legs a little bit to buy a little bit of time. Just thoughts on CJ Stroud going number 4 to the Indianapolis Colts.
I love it. Of the ones, I mean, so I love the idea of it. I love the idea that he would drop to 4. I think Me and you had talked about this. I don't think he's going to be there at 4. I do think probably someone's going to trade up with Arizona. Some people that no sources. I don't have sources. I have friends, but some of the people who some of the friends that you have talked to and that I've talked to, it's hard. Man, if he slips to 3 and he's sitting there at 3, and they're not expecting to have him sitting at 3, that's when it's going to get really interesting. But he's been number 1 on our board here since. He changed both of. You've been a big Bryce Young fan. We sat there after the Georgia game. I think he changed a lot of minds, and we sat there and we looked at it and we were like, man. I had Levis as my one that I wanted, and I came out with. I think we did a round table with a lot of other Colts content creators.
Yeah,
and across the board after that Georgia game, he had changed everybody's mind. I think he is the most pro ready. Which, whatever anybody wants to say about this, I think that's very important because the Colts, say what you want with Gardner Minshew, they do not have their starting quarterback. Who they would want, who they want to draft, has got to be ready to step in and play this next year. That's been a big thing. Me and you have talked about. If the pick had been Anthony Richardson, me and you have felt he's got to play. I think Stroud has the highest floor. And he's not necessarily the highest ceiling, but I was watching something. It was Move the Sticks. It was with Daniel Jeremiah and it was with Todd McShay. And they were talking about Anthony Richardson. They said he absolutely has the highest ceiling. They gave him a 40% chance to hit that ceiling. And if he hits the ceiling, he's generational. But 40% chance to hit it is scary. I think Stroud's your starter for the next 10 or 15 years. He comes in, he's ready to go. And he commands a room. He can command a room. He played with a lot of talent. So I like that pick. I would love it if he drops to it. Like I said earlier, I don't know if he does. But if he's sitting there and he's on the board, I'm hard. And we know Ballard loves Big Ten and Ohio State players. I'm hard-pressed to believe he's not the pick.
I will say this. If this scenario were different and on draft night, if Will Levis and C.J. Stroud are there, I believe in my heart, Will Levis will be an Indianapolis Colt if those two players are on the board. I do. I just think that's the guy they have honed in on. I don't think that he falls to them necessarily, but I think that's the guy that they've honed in on. So just a little bit of a nugget. Let's go down to the 5th, Seahawks. This is interesting because you got Jalen Carter, who's had obviously a little bit of off-field stuff going on during this combine, this postseason here. But then you've got a guy who's very, very just seems like he's shooting up boards. Teams love him, but he hadn't really been able to work out in a Tyree Wilson, right? Like he's a freak athlete. Both of those guys feel so much to me like Seattle Seahawks. But I'll say this, in this particular scenario, Pete Carroll has a real long history of taking guys with a little bit of I would call it a seedy background, right? Like he develops those guys. He has a really unique relationship with his players. And that being said, I'm gonna say Jalen Carter is gonna be the 5th pick in this draft. I don't think he slides further than this. It's possible, but I'm gonna go ahead and punch him in here on my draft tracker so I can keep up with you guys. And that's pretty. I'm pretty confident in that top 5 happening, Stephen. Nothing I don't think too shocking in there. I would say though, Levis to the Texans probably would throw people for a loop as far as that goes. Glad to see Colton agrees. Unboxing wants to know is Stroud as mobile as Herbert? I don't know if he's quite that mobile, but I'll say I think he's functional with his legs. I think we all saw.
I would say
we all saw that in the Georgia game.
I think he's mobile like Aaron Rodgers. In regards to, I think the mobility for him is more to set up the throw than to go get and get a first down or get 5 yards if you need it. But it's elusive. It's more manipulating the pocket, I think, is what he is. Now, on the flip side, too, is Stroud. I don't know if any of us really know because he was never asked to do it at Ohio State till that Georgia game. So is it a one-off or is that what he actually can do going forward? It'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
I like your top 5, man. I like your top 5. I love your explanation with Jalen Carter.
So let's go. Let's do this so we can keep things going for everybody. I'm going to go 6 through 10, kind of in order. I'll kind of talk through those picks a little bit, and then you can maybe pull one or two out that you want to talk about in a little bit more detail.
I'm good with that.
Detroit Lions at number 6. Obviously, we all know who their head coach is, and look at this. C.J. Stroud is going to be 70% with Steichen, guy with ball placement specialist. Love it, Drake. I'm going to go with the guy at cornerback in Witherspoon. He's got a little bit of FU in him, and Dan Campbell does too. So I'm going to match those two guys together. I know there was a little bit of a temptation for a Christian Gonzalez to go right there, but I think Witherspoon, a stat that stuck out to me now that we are using the PFF simulator in the slot. Devon Witherspoon allowed 1 yard this year. One receiving yard. That's pretty damn good football. He's going to be pretty good in this league. I feel confident in saying that. Number 7. Now this is the Vegas Raiders, and gosh, you still got Anthony Richardson sitting out there, right? Like you still have that temptation. You just signed Jimmy G. What do you do there, man? I mean, do you pull it on that, or do you go a whole different direction if you're the Raiders? And if I'm the Raiders, I'm probably going to fight the temptation, and I'm going to go Tyree Wilson right now. I'm going to take a pass rusher. I'm going to take a guy who's probably, it's 1A, 1B with Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson. Those are going to be my guys that I select for the Raiders. At number 8, I'm going to go Anthony Richardson. I think he's going to be a Falcon on draft night. I don't think he falls any further than that. Arthur Blank knows what it's like to have a running quarterback in that building. He started that trend with Michael Vick, and he's going to end that trend with Anthony Richardson as his new signal caller for the next several years. Now we got the Chicago Bears, who we obviously know they traded out of that first pick to go down to number 9, and they need help everywhere, really. They need tackle, they need cornerback, they need several different things. Selected 2 cornerbacks last year. Still, I mean, you've got a guy in Christian Gonzalez that's out there, pretty damn good football player, and then you got a Peter Skoronski. You could also go, you could Paris Johnson Jr. Those are all different directions. I think in this particular situation, I'm going to go with Gonzalez here at 9. I'm going to give him a cornerback, long-armed. He has all of the traits that you would love from a top-end cornerback in the NFL. And then the Eagles. Now, I'm going to explain to everybody right now, when I say this pick, it's not – I probably am picking with my heart, not my brain on this one right here. But I think they would just blow the draft up. And I'm going to pencil it in right now. Give me Bijan Robinson at number 10. Philadelphia Eagles, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts, and Bijan Robinson in that offense.
To get down to him.
And good luck if you're in the NFC.
Wow.
That's what I'm going with number 10. And I've kind of talked myself into that here in the last couple days. And we obviously know 10's high, man. We know it's high for a running back, but this guy's generational. He's very, very good. Pass catcher, runner. He is going to be a good football player probably for the next 5 to 8 years. Eagles are in a great situation where they're already pretty talented. They got picks as well in this draft. And I'm just gonna say, hey, you know what? You're going to take probably the best player available, not at the most premium position, but the best player available in the draft. And they're going to take Bijan Robinson. Thoughts, Stephen?
Okay, so sticking out for me, that's a big one. I could see it because they're very loaded. I feel like they don't have a lot of holes, and they have some luxury picks. That they can do best player, not necessarily. They don't have a glaring hole when you really look at them. I mean, I hate to say that, but so the only one of the ones that interests me, I like the Anthony Richardson has been linked to the Falcons. I do also like him to the Raiders,
Yeah.
but we have heard a lot of rumblings saying the Raiders are really interested in Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. And honestly, I don't trust Josh McDaniels to coach himself out of a wet paper sack. I think
Yeah.
he's horrible, and I don't think he could develop him. Arthur Smith, the current head coach of the Falcons, let's remember he developed Ryan Tannehill a few years back when he was really playing really well. He's not been the same since Arthur Smith left. I like that. I mean, they have Desmond Ridder. I think, me and you were talking about this. I think the idea that Anthony Richardson has to sit for an entire year, I think is stupid. I
Yeah.
think he has to play. He has to play. And that would be an interesting one. We do know they like Desmond. They are one of the teams that he had a top 30 visit with. So I don't dislike that pick. And I love I think of all of them, I think my favorite rationale. I mean, I still really like your explanation with Jalen Carter going to the Seahawks. It makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of like back in the day when Bruce Arians coached the Cardinals. He was able to kind of corral those big personalities.
Yeah.
And get them in line. And so people just go there. I think Pete Carroll's very much the same. The shock for me of outside of CJ Stroud dropping to the Colts, right?
Yeah.
The shock, it's Bijan Robinson. That's a surprising pick that high. ESPN said he's a generational talent, just in the wrong generation.
Yeah.
At the wrong position is the thing. But I like that pick, actually. It's not what I would have thought of. So kudos on your top 10.
Okay, man. Let's head on. We're going to go 11 through 15. Okay. Division foe, Tennessee Titans. They need help, really. They need lots of help. But I'm going to give them who I feel like is the safest tackle because they need offensive line help. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to go with Peter Skoronski. And I think they actually get a pretty good football player there at 11. There's no doubt about that. Number 12, anytime, Steven, I love this idea, and I really hope the Colts do this as well, but we'll see how the draft board shakes out. Anytime that you get a young quarterback, you want to give them a young weapon, right? A new shiny toy. I mean, I think that goes without being said. I'm going to go with Jackson Smith-Njigba at number 12 to the Houston Texans. That's Will Levis's next throwing partner for probably the next 10 or 12 years. So we'll go there. Jets are in a weird situation here because they're kind of in a holding pattern with Aaron Rodgers. They don't even know who's going to be their quarterback, right? Like the thought of not knowing who's going to be actually your quarterback at this point sucks if you're a Jets fan and also if you're a part of that Jets regime. That being said, you got to draft somebody and you got to get some talent out there. I'm going to go a little bit of a run here, but I'm going to go with Paris Johnson Jr. I think that they definitely need tackle help to solidify whomever's going to be their quarterback, whether it be young or a veteran, and take care of that. 14, as always for me, is almost an impossible pick because you just can't ever figure out what's going on in Bill Belichick's head, right? Like he always just throws something out of left field. In this one here, he needs tackle help. He could even go for a quarterback. I mean, I don't think he will, but I mean, he needs edge help. He needs tackle help. I mean, several positions. I wanted to take Brian Branch here because he has such a connection with Alabama and he's just such a New England Patriot type of guy. But I'm also going to go with another guy who's a lot like a Patriot type of guy. And I'm going to go with Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. Heavy hands. They like their bigger pass rushers. They're not as into all of the speed rush stuff. So I'm going to go that route. And then rounding out here at 15, Green Bay Packers. What would be the irony, Steven, if they get rid of Aaron Rodgers? He's been griping about drafting a wide receiver for the last 7 years, and then they come out and draft a wide receiver in this draft. Like, how crazy would that be, huh?
Dude, you're reading my mind, though. I think you're going to say something, and it's exactly what I'm thinking.
And they got Christian Watson last year, big body, right? So I'm going to go with the pass catcher, but it's going to be a tight end. It's not going to be a wide receiver this year. I'm going to go I'm going to go with a guy who I feel like can really, really help them in a lot of different areas. And punch in for me, I'm going to go with Michael Mayer. Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame.
That's not the one I was thinking you were going to say.
That's who I'm going to go with. I just think that they're going to go for a really solid football player. Don't get me wrong, Kincaid was really, really like tempting right there. But it didn't go that route. So 11 through 15. John Kennedy says Belichick's going to draft a center. Watch. Love it. Love it. Love it. What are you thinking, Steven?
Yep. So I don't hate it. It's not who I would have thought. I thought you were going to go Quentin Johnson with the Packers. Yeah. I felt like that big bot, and they've contrary to what we're saying too about Aaron Rodgers have always wanted some sort of talent, some sort of receiving talent. They also are a little devoid of some now too. You know, Randall Cobb's gone. Yeah. Alan Lazard's gone. So, I mean, they're actually a little devoid of some talent on the kind of the peripheral out there.
Well, I'll tell you the reason I didn't do that is they got Christian Watson last year, and that guy was amazing at the end of the year. And they're a lot the same. I mean, Quentin Johnson, big body receiver. Mm-hmm. And I was tempted to go with one of these, smaller, faster guys. But they've always been at their best when they have a really, really good premier tight end. So I went that direction. But
I don't
many possibilities.
I don't disagree with it. I don't. In a tight end, a good tight end is a young quarterback's best friend. I know Jordan Love has been in the league for several years, but he is going to be a young starting quarterback. The Skoronski pick for the Titans, I like that one. I could also see. I mean, and what's funny is it doesn't show it all on PFF, right? There's so much talk of a quarterback for them.
Yeah.
I could see them being persuaded into like a Hendon Hooker at 11. I could see that potentially.
Yeah.
Or if someone drops. If Will Levis was in Tennessee recently. Hell, Will Levis was in New England recently, if you were to slide. So, but if you're going off of what they need to do, I love that pick too. I think Skoronski, I think the only beef against him, I think he has short arms, is what people keep saying.
Yeah,
but I can't complain. I mean, they're extremely solid picks. So, I mean, it's falling in a nice way. I like the Paris Johnson. I like the Paris Johnson Jr. one. I think that's a good spot. You're going to get Aaron Rodgers. You need to protect him. And that team's really good in a lot of places, but they could use that extra little bit of help. So, I like it, man. We'll go 16 through 20 now.
We will. Washington Commanders and they're a team that's a pretty solid defense. They just didn't have a lot of juice, but I think you're going to bring in a new quarterback this year, and potentially, get him some weapons in Sam Howell. Obviously, you've got McLaurin out there. Man, they could go a lot of different directions. I feel like they need a little bit of help on the line too. I'm going to go with a guy who I feel like is clearly the best interior offensive lineman. It might be a little earlier. This might be a little bit of a reach, but I'm going to go with Osiris Torrance. He'll be down there a little bit, Steven. I just think he's a damn good football player, and he's really going to make that line a lot better. Ron Rivera loves, having a really good offensive line, being able to run the football. So I'm going to go with that. And then we're at 17. This is going to be the cheesiest pick of this whole thing. It's going to be a reunion, but it's also a player of need, and he's very good. Joey Porter Jr.
Read my mind, man. Read my mind.
Going to the Steelers.
It's perfect.
I mean, how much more information can you get from a player than from a player who, his dad used to play for you? So I think I go
That's
that
a great
way.
Pick.
Yeah,
I love that pick.
So Detroit at 6 went with Witherspoon as a cornerback, and now they've got some real opportunity to kind of. I mean, it's a little bit wide open, honestly. I mean, it really is. You can go out there and get you some weapons on offense if you want to do that. Defensively, I do think they need to step up, though. I think they need some help, and I'm gonna tell you one thing. They've had some pretty good drafts here recently, and an interesting guy is Nolan Smith. out of Georgia. I'm going to draft him right now for the Detroit Lions. And in no way am I saying this, in no way am I fully comparing him to this, but he gives me a little bit of Micah Parsons vibes. So
Ooh.
do not, confuse what I'm saying for, me making a straight direct comparison, but I get those vibes, man. Like he's just a special football player. And I think he's going to help them. At 19, Tampa Bay, really Tampa Bay needs everything. They've already got a couple good receivers, but minus that, they're going to need to get their offensive line solidified as well. Just a lot of options. I'm going to go with Darnell Wright right now. I'm going to give him a tackle. They just lost Donovan Smith, and I think that's probably the direction they're going to go in. And then obviously Seattle at 5 took Jalen Carter. They could really use a lot of things. They could go out and get them. They can go out and get an offensive weapon for Geno. They can go out and get another offensive lineman. Let's see. I think I actually went with deal.
Well, the interesting thing is this could also be a spot. I'm just saying, it could also be a spot for the fifth quarterback for Hendon Hooker. That now that we're on the back end of the first round,
Yeah,
that's going to be a very interesting topic as you go through some of these teams because he does have the ability to sit for a little while. He's a very intriguing prospect, man.
He is.
I can see him hitting a lot of different teams.
So we're going to go with Anton Harrison. I'm gonna take a tackle for Seattle, and then we'll just. I think we're good with that pick. What pick are we on now?
We're on 21 with the Chargers because the Dolphins forfeited their pick.
Yeah. So, let's go through a few more, then we can fire off, and you guys can say Colton Witherspoon and Nolan Smith would be an incredible first round for the Lions. They also have 2 second-rounders this year too, I believe. You ain't wrong, man. You ain't wrong, and I think they're on the up and up. Los Angeles Chargers. Weapons, and this guy ain't dropping no further. Dalton Kincaid's going to the Los Angeles Chargers. They're just going to keep loading up, man. They need a lot of players at a lot of positions, but they're going to keep loading up. Baltimore Ravens. Now, I know that the Baltimore Ravens just signed Odell Beckham Jr. I know the Baltimore Ravens don't know who's going to be their quarterback next year. That being said, you still need pass catchers for whomever's going to throw them the football. And I'm going to go with Quentin Johnson right here. He just fits the mold for them. He's big, physical, a lot of traits. That's what they love there. Eric DeCosta loves that. And then you got the Minnesota Vikings. They really need a lot of things, Steven, honestly. But on the defensive side, I'm really enamored with Deonte Banks. And I think I'm going to go with him right here. I think that's the right pick for me. And then to round out at 24, and we'll kind of have a stoppage before we finish out. Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, who do we take with the first pick, Steven? Can you scroll down for me?
For the first pick for which one?
Did Jacksonville have an earlier pick?
No.
Okay, so this is their first pick. We could go. Obviously, we could go edge. We could go defensive back. Their defense does need to get better. There's no question about that. Even their interior, could stand to get a little bit better. I think I'm going to go with an edge here. I think I'm going to give him Miles Murphy. I think that's about where he's going to start falling. He's pretty raw with his actual skill set. That being said, a lot of potential and just a freak athlete. All right, Steven, a lot to digest. I think we went through about 9 there before we finish up here. Thoughts?
Yeah, so going back, I love the Joey Porter Jr. pick.
Yeah.
Nobody seems to develop, even outside of the fact that he's Joey Porter's son and he's a Steeler legend. They develop linebackers so well there, and it's a position of need. So I like that one. Darnell Wright, very intriguing, very, very much shot up the draft boards, especially after the combine. So I like this spot for him. I think that's a solid spot. Weapons, man. I agree with you with the Chargers. They have Keenan Allen. They have Mike Williams. Get him a tight end too. If you hadn't have gone with him at 10, Bijan Robinson I could see there because of the Austin Eckler issues going on. So I could have seen that kind of as that pick. I'm going
Yeah.
to take a jab at Chargers real quick. No matter how many weapons you have, you can't compensate for how bad that coach is.
Yeah.
Keep throwing darts at the wall, man. If you're with the Ravens, I like that one because you don't know if it's going to be Lamar, but hell hath no fury like Lamar if you pass on a guy who had really top 10 potential at wide receiver and he's staring at you and
Yeah.
you don't go. Now, I know they've thrown a lot of, contrary to what has been said, they have drafted wide receivers and they've drafted them high. They just haven't panned out. So I do like that pick a lot. Miles, the Miles Murphy one, the only thing I would have done different, I might have gone Brian Breesy.
Yeah.
I like that one too, but I like the edge.
Yeah.
So not a whole lot to say really negative. It's very on point.
Then let's get going with the Giants at 26. I think they need a pass catcher. I mean, they struggled last year with a little bit of that. I'm gonna go with Zay Flowers.
Damn it.
He's an elusive guy. Selfishly, would I love to held on to him to the second round? Absolutely, but I think he's too good. He might not even last. Yeah, he might not even be lasting that long. Dallas Cowboys, they need a lot. That being said, there's a guy who shot up draft boards. He's a freak athlete. I know some people have kind of said he's a poor man's Aaron Donald. Kalijah Cansey is a guy that I'm going to take for the Cowboys. That could really, really help kind of move the needle on that defensive side of the ball. Now, the Buffalo Bills, they're an interesting team, man. They just lost, Tremaine Edmonds at linebacker. They could probably take a little bit of cornerback help as well. I definitely think there's a potential for that. Or you could say, you know what, Stefan's starting to get a little bit up there. Let's go ahead and pair him, with somebody else as far as that goes. But I'm going to go with, man, this is really, really hard for me because this is a player that I want for our football team. But I'm going to go.
Stop giving them away, Zach.
I know. I can't. I just am having such a hard time with this pick because I really think I'm going to do it. I'm going to give them Jordan Addison from USC. That's what I think that they would do.
One.
It's a good one. Yep, it's a good one, but
it's a good player.
That being said, man, that's rough. That's rough for me. Going to 28, Cincinnati Bengals have this pick, and I think the fall stops, in my opinion, for Brian Branch. He's too good of a player, really, to fall that far, but safety's just not valued. But he's going to have a lot of nickel coverage help as well. 30th pick, New Orleans Saints, and they could take help realistically anywhere. I mean, there's just everywhere, all up and down. Center, guard, D-line, cornerback, obviously. I mean, there's a lot of people who could help them. But I'm gonna go with Brzee. I'm gonna go with Brian Brzee right now and give them a little bit of help on that interior. And now, fresh off that Bijan Robinson as their running back. What a freaking crazy pick that would have been at 10. And if I hit on that pick, you got to give me super, super kudos for that. They could really use anything. I mean, offensively, I think they're pretty solid. On the defensive end, look, they don't care how many they have. They're just going to keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. And I'm actually going to go Will McDonald right here. Might be a little early for him, but as a passer, it's an edge. It's a guy who they can groom. They really like guys, Steven, that they can develop into, especially in a year 2, 3, and 4, with Brandon Graham getting up there in age. Kansas City, D-line, obviously, they're always looking to add as far as edge. I'm going to go B.J. Ojulari right here. I think he's Azeez Ojulari's younger brother, and I'm going to give them a pass rusher. And then this is the start of the second round. We're getting close to the Colts pick, Steven.
I know.
What do you think?
I missed the 2 receivers you got rid of, man.
I know.
That's the first one, but they make sense. You know, I think I read somewhere Diggs didn't show up to the voluntary right now. It's not a huge thing, but it's there.
Yeah.
So I think the only change I might make is I think with 31 with the Chiefs, I'd give them Josh Downs, that small, speedy receiver that does so well for them.
Yeah.
Because they lost Juju, I could see them do. They go off the wall anyway. They go with
Yeah.
players you don't think that they need. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? Like no one saw that pick coming, and they did it. That might be the only one. But selfishly too, for the Colts, I like Josh Downs, so maybe he's
Yeah.
still there when they pick, But I don't know where your head's at with it. But I'm good. I mean, I like the Jordan Addison one a lot. I like
Yeah.
that one a lot. And honestly, I like the Brian Branch one because they lost Jesse Bates. That makes a
Yeah.
ton of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, good picks, man.
Let's go.
Nothing off the wall outside of Bijan.
Second round, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Broderick Jones, tackle. They need help there, anyways. And he's definitely the best player available, in my opinion. Now, we've selected with the Texans here. We've gotten our quarterback, we've gotten our wide receiver. We could go and get some more help. I mean, we really haven't gotten any help for D'Amico Ryans out here. And this might be a pretty good time to go out and get some help. They shored up that cornerback position last year, in my opinion. Probably time to go out and invest in a defensive lineman, edge rusher, something along those lines. I think I'm going to take the K-State kid, Felix Anadik Uzama. I don't know how to say his name that well, but I think I'm going to take that dude. Really good, huge upside, and we know D'Amico Ryans. He can coach them up for sure. The pick for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals took them a pass rusher, and now I think it's just best player available if you're the Cardinals, right? Like, you just got to – I mean, you're a terrible football team. At this point, you just got to say, you know what? We're going to take any player at any position that can help our football team and help us win some games. And in this case, got to replace some of your stuff that you got. I'm going to go with Cam Smith right here at cornerback. And that leads us to the last pick of this draft. Now, Steven, I'll let you talk as I kind of mull over. I got 2 or 3 guys I'm thinking about taking, just some thoughts, and then maybe transition into position of need for the Indianapolis Colts in the second round, knowing that we've already taken a quarterback.
So, all right. So review. I'm going to review the 3 that you did real quick too while you're mulling. I love the Broderick Jones. I think that's a great pick. I love the Cam Smith pick. I was going to joke around and say maybe they take a quarterback, but they won't. That's more non-trusting Kyler Murray, right? For the Colts, man, we joke around about Zay Flowers. We joke around about Jordan Addison. I made the comments about Josh Downs. We've invested a lot in the second round in wide receivers recently. I could see the want to invest in the talent that's around to give him more talent. But man, when you start looking through, you got young talent in Alec Pierce, you got young talent in Michael Pittman Jr. Then it's like, well, do you draft someone like a young tight end, right?
Yeah.
Well, you've got Jelani Woods, who I think everyone is super high on going into his second year, and you got Jonathan Taylor. So I mean, I look at my number outside of quarterback, it's further on the list when you look at PFF. Corner, I feel like is such a big need, and you do still have some good talent that's on the board. That's probably the direction I go with that second pick, because that for me is the most glaring need that they have after you've gotten that quarterback off the board with pick 4.
I'm glad you said that too, because I am going to take a cornerback in the second round here. And this guy's kind of fits the mold of, as my Alexa's going off in the background for, I have no reason why. I don't know why it's going off, and I'm going to go with Julius Brents.
Let me find him. Where is he? Oh, yes. Okay, I love that pick, man. Oh, I like that one a lot. He's been linked a lot. I think he was at the local pro day, wasn't he? He came to the
Yes.
local pro day
Top
they had.
30
I like
visit.
him a lot. I think they like him a lot too. That's a completely completely doable pick. Like that's a
I'll be right back,
completely
Steven.
doable pick. I like that one a lot. I think one of the more interesting things is as we look through the picks, I like that one for the Colts. There's not a ton of dissent for me on a lot of the picks. As we go back over the top of them, I don't. And for those who maybe joined in late or weren't here when we first did it, obviously at the very top of the draft we had Bryce Young going 1, and the shocker of the night on our live stream, Zach has Will Levis going number 2. We're not doing trades, so when Anderson goes 3, it leaves C.J. Stroud sitting right there at 4 for the Colts. I'm just doing a little recap for those who may have missed the top of the draft.
Yeah.
I think, I could pick a bone and say, in my heart of heart, I think that there's a really solid chance one of these teams does take like a Hendon Hooker.
Yeah.
I think you're spot on with the receivers. I think there's going to be a run on receivers at some point.
Yeah.
And I do think like a Zay Flowers, a Jordan Addison, a Quentin Johnson, they're going to go. And they're going to go quick.
Yeah.
But obviously there's the caveat that you said in the beginning with ours. There's no trades. I think me and you have talked about it. I think there's a very real possibility someone probably goes up to 3 above the Colts. And me and you have talked very openly. And I've talked on here, and me and you have talked privately about it, is that I think that Will Levis pick is probably a very likely one for the Colts, and people are going to just burn everything down, which I still don't get. For the life of me, I won't understand. But overall, if the draft shakes out this way, I don't see any, like, outside of the Bijan Robinson, which is a luxury pick for the Eagles, which I think that's okay. Like, they're one of the few teams I can look at and go, that's okay. Like, that fits what Sirianni would want to do. That fits what they would want to do. And it makes sense.
I just think, but for them, it's not a luxury pick, though. You know what I mean? Like I understand what you're saying, and you're so right. Like taking you take a quarterback top 10. That's really, really rich. That being said, for them, it's not really a luxury, I don't think, because they need a really good running back on that football team. And they're doing so well in so many other areas on that football team. I don't know. I think it's
all about who drops, right?
I think you're taking the best player available. But yeah, if
Jalen Carter drops to 10, my God, I don't think they can run the thing up fast enough for him. Yeah. But if the players who are gone, and they're sitting there, it makes a ton of sense. It does. I think the one that's going to blow everyone's mind when they watch this back is still the number 2 pick.
Yeah.
I still think that's going to blow people's mind. I think that's the one that gets everyone's attention, because everyone looks at the board and says 1 is Bryce Young, 2 is C.J. Stroud. It's just how the board is.
Yeah.
And I got a second before we came on. I watched with the next pick, right? I did get a chance to watch the new one. And Ballard says something, and it makes sense. No 2 teams' boards are going to be exactly the same. Levis could be really high on the Texans' board. I think we both agree he's high on the Colts. He's much higher on the Colts board than a lot of people want to believe.
I would agree with that.
I love it, man. I think I am so ready for this draft to get here next week.
Yeah.
A week from tonight, we will be watching it. At this time, we will know who the Colts have selected.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
God bless it.
It should be so cool. Before we get off here, I just want to take a quick second and thank each and every one of you guys for joining us tonight, as well as just all through the last 2 seasons as we head into our 3rd draft together as we're doing this podcast. Everybody who hasn't already joined this family, go ahead and join this family. If you have, we're so happy to have you a part of this family. We love doing these things with you. In the interaction, I think for Steven and I both, that's the biggest thing. The interaction, when you guys give us the opportunity to, let you use your voice, not just our voice, because it means a lot to us. It's really, really special. So just want to say a big thank you to you guys as we're getting close to 2.5K subscribers on YouTube. Steven, Send us out, brother.
It may have so all the same thing. You guys can see my photo bomber coming behind. It's annual tradition. She's decided to bring back, but it may have felt so. I've like Zach said, I've played with different noises. We've had a little bit of fun tonight. The draft is almost here finally, and it has definitely felt. I felt like this was so appropriate for tonight because I think this is how we've all felt.
2,000 years later.
Like, it's felt so long, but it is here. Like, I can't echo enough what Zach says. It's always great to have you guys come on here. This is the first time me and Zach have been able to get on and kind of link up on the live stream in several weeks too, because we've just had a lot of stuff going on. So it's great to hear from everybody again. We're going to talk to you guys on draft night. In some way, shape, or form, me and him have talked about it. You guys will hear from us on draft night. You may not see us throw something across the room in the heat of the moment, but you may catch it like a little bit later. We'll see. We're still trying to figure out what we're going to do. But in the end, I love you. I know Zach loves you. We're out.